Ryan's World is one of the biggest YouTube channels in the world, sitting at nearly 40 million subscribers. And at first glance, it looks like any other kid's channel. Bright colors, toy unboxings, and a smiling child in the thumbnail. It feels simple, harmless, even nostalgic for a lot of viewers. But once you start looking a little closer, a very different story begins to take shape. Ryan started his YouTube journey at just 4 years old, creating videos like opening surprise eggs, playing with Play-Doh, and reviewing toys. At the time, nothing seemed unusual, just a kid having fun in front of a camera. But then the numbers came in, and everything changed. 30 million views, 32 million views, over 1 billion views. And this was happening before he even started preschool. That level of attention doesn't stay small. It spreads across the entire internet and turns something casual into something massive almost overnight. Ryan's parents later claimed that starting the channel was his idea.
Video.
But realistically, how many 4-year-olds understand YouTube, algorithms, or viral success? It raises a bigger question. Who was really making the decisions behind the scenes? Over the next few years, Ryan's World exploded into a global empire, generating over $20 million in a single year back in 2016, and eventually building an estimated net worth of over $100 million. For someone who hasn't even reached his teenage years yet, that's almost unbelievable. Naturally, you'd expect that kind of money to be carefully managed, protected, and set aside for his future. But as the channel grew bigger, so did the concerns. Questions about control, pressure, and how much of Ryan's life was truly his own started becoming harder to ignore. What began as simple entertainment slowly started to look more like a full-scale business built around a child.
The most successful YouTuber in the world, the highest paid YouTuber,
leading to tens of millions of dollars.
You're on track to be a teenage billionaire doing YouTube.
So what changed? If you look at the numbers, the shift becomes impossible to ignore. In August 2022, Ryan's World was pulling in around 468 million monthly views, an insane level of traffic even for top-tier creators. But fast forward just 2 years, and that number dropped to under 300 million. Still massive compared to most YouTubers, but the downward trend is clear, and trends like this rarely happen without a reason. And when you zoom in on individual uploads, the situation looks even worse, with many recent videos struggling to break past 100,000 to 500,000 views.
And Ryan Kaji got into YouTube when he was only 3 years old, with his parents posting videos of him unboxing toys, and it was also in 2015 when YouTube launched YouTube Kids, so it was a great time to get started in that. But his parents actually did some pretty sketchy things, like breaking FCC laws, making it so Ryan was doing way too many ads towards kids, and YouTube ended up getting a $170 million lawsuit from that in 2019. But still, the Ryan's World channel continued to grow, where they made $29 million in a single year just from what YouTube was paying them, and they made an additional $25 million off of sponsorships and their own toys. But now the channel's begun to see some sort of a decline, where the parents are still having Ryan act like a kid despite being 13 years old and visibly in puberty. Because even though they brought in younger kids to be a host for the channel, a lot of the videos are still like this, where they're portraying Ryan like he's still 5 years old.
For a channel of this size, that's a huge drop-off. But the real issue isn't just the numbers, it's Ryan himself. Back in the early days, Ryan looked genuinely happy. He was playing with toys that clearly interested him, reacting naturally, laughing without effort, and everything felt real. That authenticity is what made millions of people connect with the content. But now, things feel different. He's grown older, but the content hasn't evolved with him. He's still dressing up, still acting much younger than his actual age, still repeating the same format that worked nearly a decade ago. And that's where the disconnect becomes impossible to ignore, because audiences grow up, and creators are expected to grow with them. Viewers have started pointing this out more and more. Comments have been disabled on many videos, and clips are spreading across platforms like TikTok, not because people enjoy them, but because people are questioning them. Some of these clips rack up millions of views with captions like, "Let him retire," or "This doesn't feel right," and the comment sections are filled with people expressing the same concern. That kind of viral attention isn't positive. It's a warning sign. When you compare this to other kid creators, the difference becomes even clearer. Channels like EvanTube eventually stepped away from the content that made them famous, choosing to move on as they got older. Others, like the Gem Sisters, adapted their content to match their age, shifting into vlogs and more relatable teenage experiences. They evolved with their audience. Ryan's World didn't, and that decision may be catching up to them in real time. Even in interviews, the dynamic feels off. Ryan is often present, but barely gets the chance to speak, while his parents take control of the conversation. Viewers immediately notice this, flooding comment sections with lines like, "Let him talk," and "Why is he not answering?" It creates the impression that Ryan isn't the one in control of his own story. And when an audience starts questioning authenticity, control, and intention all at once, that's when things begin to fall apart. Because at that point, it's no longer just about content, it's about trust.
I'm about to expose Ryan's World. Recently, there was a YouTuber who interviewed Ryan's World and it got over 2 million views. So cool, right? Wrong. Because during this interview, something didn't feel right. Ryan barely spoke at all. Didn't seem happy. Most of the time, it was his parents speaking. It was almost like they didn't want Ryan to speak and expose their dark secrets.
He's too young, he won't know what to say.
Don't give me that. Ryan is 13 now. He could definitely speak for himself. But his evil parents didn't allow him to. Just like how they don't allow him to live his childhood.
And that leads to a much bigger issue. What happens when a child grows up, but the brand built around them refuses to change? Ryan now has one of the largest digital footprints of any kid on the internet, with nearly every stage of his childhood documented and shared with millions of people worldwide. And unlike most people, he doesn't have the option to simply step away and start over. That kind of visibility doesn't fade. It follows you. Every video, every reaction, every moment, it's all still there. And as he gets older, those moments don't just disappear. They become part of how the world sees him. That level of exposure comes with real consequences. Constant public attention, pressure to maintain a certain image, and the risk of missing out on a normal teenage life. Simple things like making friends, going to school, or just being yourself become a lot more complicated when millions of people already feel like they know you. And the internet isn't always kind. The same platform that made him famous can just as quickly turn on him. Clips can be taken out of context, turned into memes, or used for criticism. And once that starts, it spreads fast. That kind of environment can be difficult for anyone to handle, let alone someone who grew up in it.
Ryan, I know there's a secret you're keeping from me, so just tell it to me straight and I promise I won't get mad. All right, fine. I'm sorry, what did you just say? I said I won't get mad. Just be honest with me.
A lot of people are worried about what this means long term. Bullying, identity struggles, lack of privacy, these aren't just hypothetical risks. They're real possibilities when your childhood is permanently online. When you grow up, you're supposed to figure out who you are. But when your entire identity has already been shaped in front of millions of people, that process becomes a lot more complicated. And there's another layer to this: control. How much control does Ryan actually have over his own image, his own content, and his own future? Because from the outside, it often looks like the decisions are still being made around him, not by him. And that's where the conversation becomes uncomfortable. Now, to be fair, Ryan's World has brought incredible success, financial security, massive opportunities, and a level of stability that most people could only dream of. There's no denying that his life is very different because of it. But success doesn't automatically cancel out the cost. Because behind the brand, behind the views, and behind the millions of dollars, there's still a kid who grew up in front of the internet without ever fully understanding what that would mean for his future. And that's where the focus shifts from success to responsibility. Now, as Ryan enters his teenage years, everything feels uncertain. Will the content finally evolve to match who he is now? Will he step away and try to live a more normal life, away from the constant spotlight? Or will the pressure to maintain the brand keep everything exactly the same? Because the longer things stay the same, the harder it becomes to change them later. The expectations grow, the audience gets used to a certain version of you, and breaking away from that becomes harder and harder. And the internet doesn't forget, it archives everything. Maybe years from now, we'll look back at this as the early example of a much bigger issue. Kids growing up online before they ever had the chance to choose it for themselves. Or maybe this becomes a story about adaptation, where things change at the right time. Right now, it could go either way. One thing is clear, Ryan's World isn't what it once was. And whether this story ends as a massive success or a cautionary tale about growing up online is something we're still watching unfold in real time. So what do you think? Should kids be allowed to grow up like this online, or should there be limits to how far parents can take it? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next one.